Hello, accept greetings from me, Nsah. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all doing great. And if you're visiting this channel for the first time, please do subscribe. Remember, I share opportunities in terms of scholarships, admissions abroad, but also things related to our cultures, empowerment of youth, language learning, environmentalism, academic teaching, etc. And in today's video, I'm so excited because I want to talk about something that is very crucial. You know, a lot of us apply for scholarships, apply for fellowships and grants. So we apply for scholarships, whether it's Chevening, whether it is Commonwealth, whether it is Erasmus Mundus, whether it is Fulbright, whether it is Chinese government scholarships or Korean government scholarships, or whether it is Turkish government scholarships, etc., 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 or fellowships like the Mandela Washington Fellowship, the Peace Corps, all of these things put together, okay? So there are different kinds of these things that we apply for, sometimes to get grants and funds, but sometimes to get training and to update our skills, and also sometimes for more specifically academic studies. But with the experience that I've had in the past many years, applying for many scholarships, many of which I've obtained, and I will be giving details in my memoir and sometime later, I want to share some tips gathered from different perspectives. First, my perspective as someone who has applied for many of these kinds of things and somebody who has also received many of those things. And then from the perspective also of someone who has sat on the assessment committees of many prestigious international programs, including fellowships, scholarships, or even writing contests or competitions, as you would have it. And so I'm sharing this from a lot of perspectives and with a lot of experience, and I hope they will help you. So take them seriously, and please do share as widely as possible to help the other people. And I'll be sharing 10 tips and discussing them in more detail, because this is important. And so first tip, I call this some 10 random application tips from Nsah. First tip, never write your answers or essays all in capital letters or in uppercase letters. I will repeat this again. Never ever write your application essays all in capital letters. That's unpardonable in selection committees. Never. It is considered as a sign of impoliteness and rudeness if you write a text completely in capital letters. And worst of all, if you do so in an application or within the context of an examination. So except you have been asked specifically and exceptionally through the instructions of a particular grant or scholarship or fellowship or exam, except you've been asked specifically to write in capital letters, do not do that. Never do that. Because in any other context, which is not the norm, it is considered as a taboo. It is not forgivable if you send in an application all written in capital letters. So write with case-sensitive letters. Start sentences with capital letters, capitalize proper nouns, and end with full stops and punctuate properly. So if you write an application, either the essays for an application, statement of purpose, motivation letter, motivation essay, or your research proposal, or grant proposal, if you write all in capital letters and you're sending it somewhere, know that, and you're sending it somewhere, know that you have prepared a disaster for rejection. In fact, you have already rejected yourself beforehand. Tip number 2, always make sure that at least one person or more people with knowledge of what you are applying for read your application and provide you with some constructive feedback so that you can improve it. So it means that when you're applying for a fellowship or a specific fellowship or scholarship, it is recommended and almost obligatory that you don't just write your essays, your application material, and you send them straight off there. In most cases, you will not be accepted. You need to solicit the feedback from many people, professionals. Don't give it to just simple friends who read and say, wow, for everything you've written. No, to people who have had experience applying for similar scholarships or fellowships or grants. And then they can read it and say, we think that you have, or I think that you would make this better by providing some data here or reformulating this sentence or changing this paragraph. But remember, it is your responsibility to write the application package, the letter of cover letter, application, motivation letter, statement of purpose, or personal essays, and then someone or some people you solicit with expertise who are going to be objective enough and know how those things are done will give you advice on that. That's what we call constructive feedback, which means that the people are not just going to say, this is too bad. No, they're going to say, I think this is not, your application looks good in terms of this, but I think that you still need to do this to make it stronger. And you of course try to respect or to take those things into consideration in order to strengthen your application, because there is competition. Tip number 3, always make sure that another person or more reads your application mainly for purposes of proofreading and editing. A poorly written application, no matter its strength, is likely to take you nowhere. That is where language catches up with some of us who often dismiss it as something of no value. You remember there are lots of people. I am a fervent supporter of promoting our Cameroonian and African languages. I speak my mother tongue, which is Nsah, and I'm proud about it. But I'm also of the opinion that when you want to learn English, learn it well. Because if you're applying for these kinds of things and you think that you write terrible English and try to justify by saying, oh, English is not my language, I'm sorry for you, you will be rejected. That's all. And so when you write in good English, write in good French, and have some other person read it. I'm talking now not about another person, or at least other people who are not necessarily experts as I gave in the tip number 2, but this time around people who will be checking to make sure that you have not omitted words, you've not misspelled words, so words are not joined together. So they will help you edit it for grammatical correctness, for structural consistency, and of course, and most importantly, to fish out all typographical errors and omissions and reduce the error margin of your application. Because sometimes you can write one of the best applications in terms of structure and content, but because it is flawed with grammatical errors, omissions, typographical errors, you will be rejected. Because remember, competition is high. Tip number 4. Never capitalize on your status of poverty, joblessness, family problems, etc., unless you are applying for charity, for charity aid, okay? Yes, never, never. Scholarships, fellowships, and grants are not charity. Even when they're in the charitable domain, they give them to people who prove dedication, passion, commission, seriousness, and mastery of what they are doing, and not just out of desperation. If it is out of desperation, they can send humanitarian aid and it will be distributed to people in need. Okay, so these things, I mean scholarships, fellowships, and grants are meant for qualities such as academic performance, excellent academic performance, or achievements in that area and so on, meaning having a track record of maybe creating impact in that domain, receiving similar grants in the past, and so on and so forth, and not about coming and say, oh, I wish I'm giving this thing because if I'm not giving it, I'm too poor, we don't have anything to eat. Nobody cares about that. Of course, there are ways you can briefly maybe express your difficult economic situation, but do not make it the center of an application. Never try that, because go for what the application instructions ask for and provide it. Provide that thing, and don't bring desperation. Don't foreground your misery or anything like that, because it will not help you unless, I repeat, unless you are applying for charity aid. Another tip, that is tip number 5. And as I've already said for tip number 4, remember that these things are not given out of sympathy or pity. They are given to the most deserving people, the most competitive people, the most meritorious people. And so your focus in an application, even when it is for a job, is to show that you are the candidate that will bring value to a company, not about saying, without this job, I cannot pay my house rent, because the company doesn't care about you being able or not to pay your house rent, or do not count the number of brothers and sisters you have to help, and that without this job you cannot be able to help, or your mama or your papa is sick, and if you don't get this job, all will be bad for them. No, when people are hiring in companies, they are interested in getting candidates with value. What value are you coming to add to their organization? And so you must be able to speak about your value without sounding proud and arrogant. But in tip number 5, in short, never demonstrate. So tip number 5 is a continuation of tip number 4. Never demonstrate desperation and frustration in your application. Even if your situation is so bad or poor, instead show proof of resilience, show proof of having used limited resources to achieve something. So that's why I say tip number 5 overlaps with tip number 4. And what do I mean here? It is a completely different scenario for someone who writes in the application. I really wish that I'm giving this, or make sure I want to get this at all costs, because if I don't, I will not survive, because my family is very poor, my mother is dead, and this and that. This is different from the person who says, despite having lost my father or my mother at this age, I have been able to work part-time during weekends to save for my schooling, and today I have a degree. That's somebody who is showing proof of resilience, and at the same time talking about their situation, which is a situation that deserves some pity. But nobody would just focus there on the pity. People will be attracted to this candidate because the candidate proves that even in the disparate and the miserable or sad conditions, he or she has been able to grow above challenges, to record some level of success. And then people would say, oh, wow, it means if we can help this person now, he can do more if he was able to do what he or she did with the little at their disposal or in their condition. That's what I mean. So there is a stark difference between someone who is just trying to say, oh, please, if you don't give me this job, I would not be able to pay my father's hospital bills. I'm the first child, and I have many brothers behind me or many siblings who depend on me. This is different from someone who says, I come from a big family of this, but despite the situation, I have been able to work for company this, and during that period, I helped the company to increase sales from 50,000 per month to 200,000 per month. This is a different scenario, okay? Yeah, and so now tip number 6. Hey, I say, hey, never drop sentences in your application like, by the grace of God, if I get this fellowship or grant, blah, 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 I will be this, I will be happy, I will be grateful. No. Oh, I really pray to God to be able to get this scholarship or this fellowship. My friend, you are a joker. You are just a joker in your application, except you are sending the application to your church pastor. And I'm not even sure that a church pastor would take such an application seriously if they are serious. Okay. Even pastor, as I say, even pastor to go grant you the fellowship, if he even grant them, I'm not sure. I doubt. A B application don't come be in an all-night prayer session or prayer mountain. No, no way. An application is not where you write your prayers. In fact, if you are a believer like me, write a strong application and then pray for it. Pray over it before you submit it, but never pray in it. Never write your prayers into an application. Never write prayers into an application. No, don't do that. Let the application be the application. Let it focus on responding to the questions or the instructions of what you are applying for, or the expectations and requirements are specified, because for everything you are applying for, there are always instructions, guidelines, which require you to provide some specific details. Give those details, give the information asked. Don't go and focus on things that are not helpful in that application when people say to read it, like pray into an application. No way. Write a powerful application and then pray all along as you're writing it. When you're submitting it, pray over it. If you are a prayerful person or someone who believes in prayer, because some other people don't believe in prayer, but they still do their things so well. Okay, yeah, and so focus on the essentials. Tip number 7. Tailor your application to the one specific thing you are applying for. Not everything you have done or achieved must be mentioned in every application, especially when you have word limits to respect. Otherwise, you will lose focus and start to raconter n'importe quoi. Yeah. So what I mean here is this. There are many of us who have many achievements in different domains of life. But when you apply for something, remember, often, almost always, there are word limits for the essays or even the application material. Because, for example, even when there is no word limit given, it would be some kind of so bizarre to send a cover letter that is longer than 2 pages or 3 pages, at 3 pages at the maximum. Generally, people sending cover letters that are 1 page or 2 pages. So even when there is no word limit there, you still have that obligation not to overdose people with unnecessary information, because you have to go straight to the point. And then worst of all, for scholarships and other things, generally there are word limits. The university or the organization offering you the scholarship or the fellowship will always, in their requirements and guidelines, tell you that for this essay, we need 200 words, 150 words, 50 words, 10 words, maximum 750, 1,000 words. Respect those words, or sometimes express it in terms of characters and say, with or without spaces. Respect every little bit of those instructions. And so avoid saying everything in your application. If you have a whole baggage of achievements and things you have done and things you like to do and domains of interest, please, for every specific application, select only those that are most relevant for that application, for that fellowship, for that scholarship, for that grant, and develop them in order to persuade the committee that you are the right candidate, that you are the best candidate. Perhaps the other things that you don't mention, they might come up spontaneously or accidentally in an interview, but do not force everything into one application. Because at the end of the day, you will go beyond word counts, and also you run the risk of writing an application that is too incoherent, because it is talking about everything and at the same time talking about nothing. Yeah. Tip number 8, be sure that you understand what you are applying for, what you are bringing to it, and what exactly you expect to take out of it. Above all, always make your community impact stand out, especially when applying for leadership-based fellowships, because it is not all about you or me, but us. This is a very crucial tip. There are people who hear about an opportunity, they go to the website the same day, they send in an application the same day. I wonder, how much time have you taken to digest what is required of you? to know what the grant or the scholarship or the fellowship is about, or their mission is about. So you don't rush these things. You start these things early, and you take your time and read in great details to understand what is required of you, so that you don't send in an application for let's say a Fulbright scholarship that reads like an application that was meant to be sent maybe for a volunteer experience in the African Youth Commission. So don't take one thing and do for another. Don't take an application that is for maybe a master's in economics and send it to a place where an application is needed for someone to do a master's in physics. Be sure that you know what you are applying for. And also clearly indicate what you are bringing to. That is built on your previous experience, both in terms of learning, but also even in terms of work and volunteerism, to show that you are not just coming there empty-headed, but again, be careful not to sound proud and arrogant. Just try to present your value as much as possible, and also to clearly demonstrate that you know, if it's like a scholarship, that you know, even an simple admissions without a scholarship, that you understand the study program and you know the names of course modules you'll be taking. Don't just apply vaguely. They need to know that you've done your work, your homework, that you know the university, you know its importance, its prestige, its rankings, the quality of its laboratories, of its teaching, of his research, and so on and so forth. You need to demonstrate knowledge of these things, but without being too verbose and too detailed. But you need to show all of these things when you are applying for something. So you need to take time, study the website of the department you want to be studying in, know the people who are there, the courses that are taught there, the things that are attracting you to it, and also your expectations. What do you expect to become? What specific skills and expertise do you want to learn out of that fellowship, out of that scholarship? Because you cannot be applying for a program in entrepreneurship and your expectations of it sound like somebody who is applying for a program in civics leadership. An entrepreneur will have specific skills they want to learn, maybe financial management, how to build business partnerships, the fundamentals of starting and running a business, how to write a business plan, okay? Which will be completely different from maybe understanding the needs of a community and creating community impact. So try to know what you are bringing, what the program is about, and what you expect out of the program, and how that thing will help you and your community, help you and the world, how you will use your knowledge, your skills, or whatever you will learn out of that program to be useful not only to yourself, but to more people around you. Your impact, speak about impact, not only about you. And don't speak about impact for community just by pretending, so that once you get the scholarship or any other thing that you were applying for, then you become stingy. No. The world functions in this way. We share and care. And so when you get these things, you can, they're different. When we talk about giving back to society, learn to give back in different ways. What I'm doing now is an aspect of giving back to help others to realize their own dreams, their own ambitions and aspirations. Tip number 9, never include information in your application that portrays things like plagiarism. In fact, never plagiarize. Never copy somebody's words or ideas and include in your application materials without quoting them, without acknowledging them. Or things that indicate unethical practices or unethical forms of assistance. By the way, learn what plagiarism means, because many of us joke, we don't even seem to understand what is the meaning of plagiarism. Never steal an idea. Once you have read and seen it somewhere, make sure you quote that place. Make sure you reference that place. It's not even just in terms of quoting word for word, verbatim. No, even when you reformulate the ideas, but if the ideas were not originally from you, acknowledge their source or drop them and create yours. And now, by the way, as I've said, learn what plagiarism means and avoid it at all costs. For many of us who are applying to come to study or to travel and study in like Europe or in North America, in Asia and other places, who come from universities where plagiarism is not taken seriously, be careful, because in the Western world where you are going to, for the most part, nearly every university has an anti-plagiarism checker, so much such that each assignment you turn in, each assignment you submit goes to the checker for plagiarism. Before you defend a dissertation, it is checked for plagiarism. And so if you are found guilty of plagiarism, either you are dismissed or you are sanctioned in other ways, or your certificates are even withdrawn if they have already been awarded to you. So be careful. And that's the same for fellowships, scholarships, grants, and so on and so forth. But most importantly, okay, by the way, learn, so copy this one. When in doubt, ask for clarifications to know if you are stepping into somebody's ideas or copying and without acknowledging it is not allowed. Secondly, be careful how you talk about your contributions towards other people's successes in your application. This one is a crucial one, but I will say it in pidgin. Okay, but let me just read the whole of this tip and then I will switch to pidgin, and I know why. This is a very strong point in terms of selflessness and mentorship, but it easily becomes a slippery terrain depending on how you formulate it, and worst of all, if you ever knowingly or unknowingly gave good help in a wrong manner. And before I go to this, I hope there are many people who deceive people around saying, hey, come, you can pay me and I will write your application for you. If you are paying for somebody to write your application, know that that is a crime. That is an intellectual crime. And if you get the scholarship or fellowship and later on they discover that your application was written for you by somebody, you will be dismissed. It will be withdrawn. Never try. The only permitted thing you have to do in life is write your applications, get people to read it and help you to improve it, to give suggestions. But if you just go and sit, fold your arms and pay somebody to write an application for you, to write essays for you, I know there are people who are doing that, know that that is an intellectual crime and it's punishable. Once it is discovered, you are gone. Even your CV, you are not normally supposed to pay for someone to write your CV. What you are supposed to do is that you can write your CV and then you get the assistance of people through feedback to improve it. Getting feedback is a normal legal part of life. And remember too also that when you pay somebody to write your applications for you or to apply for you, it can be very easy to discover it, because very, very often the people will say things that are not from you, things that are not from your mind, things that do not correspond with your competencies and skills and expertise. And during your studies, it's very likely that you can start behaving in ways that are very different from the image that was presented in your application. So let your application be an authentic representation of who you are, because if not, there is a risk, because first of all, it's unethical, it's a crime to abuse applications written by people who are paid. You must do it by yourself. Because paying to get your application material written, I mean written, not proofread or for the sake of professional feedback. You can pay, maybe compensate someone to give you professional feedback if that's what they do, but to pay them to write it completely for you is a recipe for disaster. And it already starts to speak to things like maybe eventually even in the program you are studying, you could end up wanting to pay somebody to write your master's thesis or your PhD thesis or to write articles for you to publish in journals. And that again, or those again, are terrible crimes. Never try that. But now let me switch to pidgin and say something again about this tip that's very important. When we apply for things like scholarship, fellowship, like whether Mandela fellowship, whether Commonwealth, whether Fulbright, MasterCard, whether Erasmus Mundus, whether Banting, postdoc, or whatever, say generally be good, especially when you apply for a leadership position. It will always be good for proof and for not light, for really proof and for true. Say you don't help other people, therefore grow like you. But it'd be very wrong for go to talk for inside application, because I don't read that somewhere, or don't read application there somewhere as a member of a jury. I see people, the person they talk like how he don't help people they write, he don't write application there for this number of people for this particular fellowship. That's a terrible crime. That one, no, that level. You know, say no man no go give you that fellowship. There are lots of very important grants, fellowships, scholarships that we apply for. We will apply for, whether they be Tony Elomolo, whether they be Yali regional centers or Yali Mandela Washington, whether they be visiting programs, whether they be in a Commonwealth or Francophonie scholarships, whether they be in whatever or specific scholarships within specific department they will school them. I beg, never try. First, as I don't already explain in English, it be forbidden, it not be normal for you for completely right person in application for you, or for submit the application for you complaint. No, if you assist, if you guide as much as possible, but make sure to say at the center, you to put the person at the center of their work. So the person they learn in the process, because what the person go profit if you help you do all things for you, chew all things, so they swallow for you. So if you do other things, so you should, and then if they accept that person for that program, now you to go learn for a place, Abi. So now the problem is, and they talk the ones of a pigeon because I think I don't notice say some way they do, but I know one maker for the way it will began to way people the way. In fact, when I understand that they talk the one as one of we Cameroonians, we Nigerians will understand pidgin. Okay, I know one maker people the way to be beyond our continent or beyond the scope of the pigeon where they talk now. So no, me feel what they talk. I don't see at time I see that thing, it really passed me. The person go feed the bully talks say me I ride. I don't apply on behalf of this number of friends and for this so and so program they get up. No way. No, if you do that kind of thing. Even if you do one, even if it like if it over really bad suited you do one, you no get right for talker. You no get right for talker because you don't supposed to do one. And of the camp the talk and make like saying some pride where you show no. You feel only talk saying you don't mentor people, okay? And normally you're supposed to mentor people, for guide them, for answer their questions, for tell them how to do the thing, for read their thing, provide them feedback for improver, but not do their thing in their place. And then carry and put that again for your own application. And so even when you want to for your application, the way we don't create impact by helping people, they make sure so it be clear, so you help them for achieve their things, where it means that them too, they play their part and they play a bigger part and you play a smaller part. So no, you can't make them for your application. They sound like say that only you do the whole thing. Even when you do, I beg, you have to tune down. I beg, Abi, when I understand, Jerry. Okay, yeah. And so now, tip, and so that's this what I mean by like, be careful about anything that would sound unethical in an application. And also, another thing, let's go to tip number 10. I will add other things under bonuses. Tip number 10, always make sure your application has some measurable impact backed up by verifiable and convincing statistics where necessary and not in generic terms. I have trained many people. So what? How many people have you trained? But if you say I've trained 10 people in coding in 6 months, that's specific, measurable, both in terms of time and in terms of number, quantity of impact. Okay, so in your application, try to prove your value and your achievements and impact in terms that are measurable and verifiable. And that is why for this reason, do not tell lies. Don't say things you have not done. Don't say I've impacted the lives of 20,000 young people within the last 5 years when you know that you have not even touched the lives of 5 people. It's bad because you might be asked to provide proofs of that. Okay. And again, if you have really impacted the lives of 500 people, 5,000 people, say it in this kind of measurable terms and how you contributed to impacting those lives, than to say I've impacted the lives of thousands. How many thousand people will begin to doubt? Many, a lot of people. That's vague. So be specific and measurable and verifiable. Now, bonus tips there. Always make sure you respect the guidelines and instructions about what you are applying for. Going against the rules is already the beginning of rejection, mind you. So no go to apply for something where they don't talk, say, send the application by email. and then you go to sign up for the person your WhatsApp number. Or person don't talk about a particular scholarship where they've explained everything about the scholar, and you come there and say, please, I'm interested. Or a job post has been published somewhere, and you come and you write, I'm interested. So the job provider will come and see you and give you the job. You must be a joker. You must be a joker. Follow the instructions. If they say attach files only as PDF, don't attach a file as Microsoft Word or JPG. If they say the application must include a cover letter typed into the body of the email, type it into the body of the email. Respect all instructions. If they say your motivation letter, statement of purpose must not go beyond 500 words, respect it. Respect all those things. Respect every single instruction, because for every grant, for every scholarship, for every admission into a university program, for every grant, when the people providing it take time and write those guidelines and instructions, it's not a wastage of their time. It's because they know that those things are important and they must be respected. It must be respected. The moment you send in an application that from just the first glance shows that you've disrespected rules, you will be rejected. There is competition. Sometimes there are thousands of applications that come in for one post, one position, or maybe 5. They will reject you because it facilitates the work. It makes work easier by rejecting as many as possible. Yeah. So take time and go through these tips over and over and over again. If somebody launches something, whether it's a scholarship or whatever, fellowship, and this, give all those detailed instructions. Remember to, even when it comes to, because generally it is allowed, it is permitted that you can contact a company for clarification or to ask for something that is missing in the instructions and guidelines for a particular fellowship or scholarship or whatever. But be careful. It will be ridiculous and show that you are not serious if you ask for something that is actually available on the website of that organization or institution, or even found in the guidelines. So take your time and read the guidelines as patiently as possible, as many times as possible, and in great detail as possible. And so that, and make sure that if you are asking for clarifications, it is something not found there in the instructions, in the guidelines, or on the website and web pages of the organization or institution in question. Yes. So I hope these tips are going to help you. And remember, I've shared them from the perspective of someone who has applied for many of such things, who has obtained many of them, and who has also sat on committees evaluating them. And so combining my experience from both perspectives, I've used it, I've shared it with you in the hope that it will improve your applications. And so feel free to book me for a consultancy where I can provide more professional guidance for a consultant in a consultancy when you are applying for something. Otherwise, for such free sessions, subscribe here, click on the notification button so that each time I send tips, information about scholarships and things like fellowships and grants and the rest, you can be notified. And of course, feel free, please, to follow me too on Facebook as Nsah, and then to follow the pages after high school, après le lycée, and Samok Info. Hopefully, at some point, I could translate this into French. But until then, I hope you enjoy and share to help the others, because if you have taken all this, I've shared them free of charge to you, do not please be stingy if you find value in this video. Take care. Bye.